Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss clustering algorithms in machine learning. So as we know that every data will not be having a label into it. So whenever we don't have label on the data, we cannot use supervised learning algorithm for such kind of data. So we need unsupervised algorithm to solve the problem where data is not labeled. So whenever we are talking about unsupervised algorithm, clustering is the best technique for unsupervised or we can say unlabeled data. So our whenever we are talking about clustering algorithm, what we are going to do, our main goal is to group the similar kind of data points in a data set. So we can use cluster analysis. So clustering is nothing but forming a group which is of similar kind. So what are the different algorithm comes under the clustering are these are the algorithm which we are having under the clustering algorithm or unsupervised algorithm. So one by one we are going to discuss these algorithms. So today we are going to discuss about k-means algorithm. So what exactly the k-mean algorithm is? K-mean algorithm is unsupervised machine learning algorithm which groups the unlabeled data set into the different clusters. So I have unlabeled data. I cannot apply supervised learning algorithm. So what I can do here, I'll use k-mean algorithm and I'll group those data into different clusters. So what I'm going to do, whenever I'm talking about data will have certain features. Okay, so I'll consider certain features and value of those features. And what I'll do, using those features, I'll try to make various groups using k-means algorithm. Okay, so how the k-mean algorithm works, we'll discuss in the next slide. I want to tell you that what exactly the k here. So why I'm saying K is representing that how many number of groups or how many cluster you want to form. So if I'm forming two clusters, so my K value will become 2. And if I'm forming 5 cluster, my K value will become 5. So it depends on that how many cluster you are forming. K is representing the number of clusters here. Clear? Now, we'll discuss with one example that how clustering k-means clustering algorithm works. So you can see here we have various data points available here. Now I want to form a group of similar kind of data points. Okay. So whenever I want to form a similar kind of data points and how many cluster I should form, it depends on the ALGO method. We are using here one method which we'll call it as ALGO method, which is basically used to find the number of cluster in the data set. So using the ALGO method, we will decide that how many cluster I should form, or generally people what they will do randomly, they will select any odd number and they will find the number of cluster. But the best way of finding the cluster is ALGO method. So I'm not discuss here in detail about ALGO method. When we'll do the implementation, that time I'll discuss that how ALGO method works. Just you see the graph, it's like a human elbow. Okay. So wherever the curve will be there, whenever I'll plot the number of cluster and within sum of squares, so I'll get this type of plot. So when I will plot this, we'll find a human elbow kind of shape. So wherever you have this curve, it means you will perform these many cluster of your data set. So this is the way of forming the number of clusters. So I'm saying that here number of cluster will be 3 in this example. So how the elbow method works, we'll discuss during the implementation of k-means. Now just remember we have the data points and I want to form a various cluster on the data set. I can form the cluster directly. I can decide that how many cluster can be formed. Okay, manually I can form, but the best way or mathematically if I want to find, I will use always ALGO method here. Fine. Now, first of all, what I have to do in k-mean algorithm, I have to initialize the centroid. I was having this data set, and I will just assign two centroid of this data set. So why I decided two centroid, because I am saying I need two clusters. So if you need two cluster, you will find two centroid of the data set. Random centroid we are finding first time. So I found this is one centroid of my data set and this is another centroid of my data set. If you want to form three clusters, you have to find three centroid. Now this is the centroid point. Now what you have to do, for every data point, you have to find the distance between the centroid and the data point. For every data point, you will find distance between this point to this centroid and the same with this point to this centroid. In the same way, this process will repeat until and unless you will not find the distance between all the data points for both the centroids. So in that way, you will find the distance between the data points and the centroids. Once the distance you have identified, wherever you will see that distance is less. So suppose I'm talking about this data point. So as you can see with your eyes also, when I'll find the distance between this point and this centroid, and this point to this centroid, where I'm having less distance, this distance is less. It means this particular data point belongs to this centroid. So I have changed the color here. So means this data point belongs to this particular centroid, and find the distance between two data points. I'm using here Euclidean distance. So we have discussed similarity measures, similarity, how to find similarity measures. We have discussed various method of finding the similarity measures, where we discuss Euclidean distance also. Okay, so go through that video and you will understand how Euclidean distance works. So I found the distance and I identified the distance, and I'm saying that these data points belongs to this centroid and these data point belongs to this centroid. Now again I will change my centroid. The next time again what I have to do, now I did not, its clusters are not performed properly, or it's not a proper cluster, so I'm changing again my centroid value here. So I'm saying then next time my centroid is this and this. Now again I'll find the distance between every point to the every centroid. And next time when I did the same task, I repeated the same thing, then my cluster has been changed. I'm saying this is one cluster which I found, and all the data points belongs to this cluster, and this is another cluster which we found, and all the data points belong to this cluster. You can see that here the clusters are far better than the previous one. So how many time I should repeat this, that how many time I should change this endpoint, it depends on the implementation part. If you mention that you want to make this Android 10 times, you want to initialize this Android 10 times, so this process will repeat 10 times. If you will initialize the value of that 5 times, it will repeat 5 times. Okay, so it depends during the implementation what value you are keeping to repeat the same task. So in that way, what we are doing, we are finding the centroid every time, and then we are finding the distance, and then we are saying that these particular data points belongs to this particular centroid. Now we are saying that this is one cluster and this is my another cluster. So this is the way of finding the centroid. Okay, so you understood how we are working. First of all, what we are doing in k-means algorithm, first we are finding the k value. I am finding that how many cluster I want to form. After finding the cluster, I will initialize the centroid value first. Once the centroid value have initialized, now I have to calculate the distance of each data point to the each centroid. So whatever data point we are having, if one data point belongs to, if one data point is near to the one centroid, it means it belongs to that particular centroid. Otherwise, it belongs to other centroid. And that way, k-mean algorithm works. And to calculate the distance, we are using here Euclidean distance algorithm. So Euclidean distance formula. So just I'll give a simple example that how Euclidean distance work. So we have here suppose 3 customer, and I want to see that customer 1 behavior, customer 1 is similar to customer 2 or customer 3, and I have two features which is weight and age. So using these two features, I want to see that customer 1 belongs to customer 2 or customer 2 belongs to customer 3. So I have to find the distance. So find the distance between two data points. What I'm using? I'm using the formula of square root. Square root of what? Customer 2. I want to find the distance between customer 1 and customer 2. So I'll use the value of weight. 72 minus 68 whole square plus same way age. Another feature is what we are having age. So 70 minus 25 whole square, and square root of all, we'll get the result which is 44.9. In the same way, we'll find the distance between customer 2 and customer 3, and we'll find the distance between customer 3 and customer 1. So where we have less distance, the less distance is available between customer 3 and customer 1. It means the behavior of customer 1 means the customer 1 is similar to customer 3. Okay, so we can say customer 1 is more similar to customer 3 rather than customer 2. So in that way, we will find the Euclidean distance and will form the cluster. So customer 1 and customer 3 will belongs to one cluster, and customer 2 will belongs to another cluster. So this is the way how k-mean algorithm works using Euclidean distance. So here we have discussed about the k-mean. So these are the steps which we are using, which I have discussed earlier also. Now these are the steps which we have written. You can go through with it and you will understand in a better way. So just will revise here. So what we are doing? What we are doing in this algorithm, we will try to group the data into multiple cluster which forms according to the similarity between the cluster. And to calculate that similarity, what formula we are using? We are using equivalent distance formula to calculate the similarity between the data points. And how my algorithm is working? First of all, what I'm doing? I'm randomly initializing the k point, or I'll use algo method to initialize the k point, which is called mean or cluster centroid. So first of all, I'll find the centroid of my data point. It depends on the k. What my k value, those many centroid I need to define. Now what I'm doing here, we categorize each item into its closest mean, and we update the mean coordinates, which are the average of the items categorized in that cluster so far. And we'll repeat the same process for a given number of iteration at the end. And we have our cluster. So how many times I have to repeat? That I will define during the implementation part, that how many times I want to change my centroid, those many times this process has to be repeated. So in that way we will form the cluster. So this is the algorithm which we are having for forming the k-means cluster. So the same thing is written here in the algorithm form. You can go through with it and you will understand in a better way. So this is all about k-mean algorithm. I hope it is clear to you. In the next session, we will discuss about the implementation of k-mean algorithm. Okay, so follow the next video also. Thank you.